Why your combat is boring in D&D. Combat is one of the most anticipated parts of D&D for many players. Deadly encounters against fantastical beasts in breathtaking scenes that somehow ends up feeling as fun as watching grass grow. Here are 4 reasons your combat feels like they are dragging on. Your maps are too simple. Unless your combat is a hypothetical fight between 100 people and a gorilla in an open plain, level up your fights by making more interesting maps. Have multiple levels to give height advantage. Add things around the battlefield that can be interacted with. Add hazards that harm or hinder creatures. Make the map dynamic and changing over time to force players to move. Do whatever you can to make sure your fights don't end up with everyone just standing still, smacking each other until one side falls over. Your enemies are boring. They say that variety is the spice of life, and that is true for combat. Add a couple of different types of enemies for your players to face during combat. If there's only one type of enemy, the rounds tend to get repetitive and defeating the enemy becomes straightforward. I think 2 or 3 types of enemies is the perfect number to make strategy more important while not being overwhelming for the dungeon master. Your fights are always to the death. Having an epic fight to the death can make the encounter exciting, but it gets boring if every combat is concluded when one side falls. Add other objectives that need to be completed to end the combat encounter. The players must survive a certain number of rounds before the cavalry arrives. Whoever gains control of and activates the artifact is teleported from the doomed dungeon. Restrain or seal away a powerful creature through a magic ritual. Your descriptions suck. If your combat devolves to, does a 17 hit? Yes, that's my AC. Okay, you take 10 points of damage. Your turn. Then it's no wonder your players are falling asleep. While it takes more of an effort, I find my players much more engaged when describing how the attacks are hitting and affecting the creatures, or why an attack misses. Throw in dialogue between attacks to convey emotions and add personality to your creatures. Not every fight in D&D needs to conclude when one side is no longer standing. Make your combat more fun by adding these 5 alternative combat goals. Open the gates! Add an interactive part of the battlefield to give the players a primary goal that needs completing. This can be a gate that needs to be cranked open, switches or levers that need to be activated to open a door, or some other set of skill checks that get added to the fight. One I used in my most recent adventure is a gate that is closed with a portcullis. The players need to use 2 cranks in unison to open the portcullis as they are getting swarmed by a horde of zombies. Stop the ritual. Whether it's a demonic cult looking to summon Orcus or scholars with corrupted minds opening a portal to a Lovecraftian horror, your players must bring an end to the ritual before something terrible is let through. This could be by defeating all of the cultists performing the ritual, or by shattering a number of crystals around the battlefield while facing minions. After the ritual is stopped, perhaps something smaller comes through the portal than originally intended. You can change how strong it is depending on how long it took the players to stop the ritual. Protect the ritual. On the other end, perhaps your players need to protect a ritual that takes a certain amount of time to complete. It could be a group of clerics performing a ritual to seal away a demon, or a wizard who needs a minute to finish teleporting the party to safety. The players probably won't be the target of the attacks and will have to protect others to survive. Survive the waves. Remember the 2000s when you were playing Call of Duty Zombies? Now imagine it in D&D. Your players need to survive as long as possible or until reinforcements arrive. Each wave gets stronger and potentially new parts of the map open up between each wave. Make sure the players know how long they need to survive and that an end is coming, so they don't feel like they are saved by an unsatisfying Deus Ex Machina. Escape the enemy. Similar to surviving the waves, the party is being swarmed, but the goal is to escape. They could start in the bottom of a dungeon. They have to make their way back out to the surface before they get entirely swarmed. The enemies can be taken down in one hit, but the players will have to switch between escaping and fighting enemies in their way, being victorious only when they escape from the enemy. 3 combat trap combos for D&D. The best way to use traps is by making it not the main focus of the encounter. Adding them to combat encounters is a fun way to level up combat and keep your players on their toes. Magnetic monstrosity. You enter a room in the wizard's tower, decorated with ceremonial weapons and suits of armor. As you enter the room, the door closes behind you, and you feel a strong magnetic energy surge through the room. Suddenly, the weapons and armor come to life, attacking the party. But as you swing your sword to fight, you find your weapon is repelled by the armor and slams to the metal floor with a thud. Everything in the room is charged magnetically, causing those that wear armor to struggle to move, and attacks that miss stick to the environment. The enemies have a negative charge, however, making them harder to hit. Can you overcome this magnetic mess? Fooling fight. You walk into a large empty room, and the floor immediately begins to crack and fade away under your weight. You run around the room, avoiding the holes that appear, but eventually you run out of options and drop to the next floor, another room. But this time, monsters begin to enter from holes in the wall. Staying in one spot too long causes you to drop lower and lower, but you are not sure how many floors there are and what dangers await you at the bottom. Can you avoid falling long enough to find a way out? Slip and slime. You enter a labyrinth below a dungeon and find yourself slipping on the floor. Everything is covered in a thick, slippery slime that causes you to slide across the room if you move too quickly. From the ceiling, tiny slimes begin to drop down, looking to devour you. Can you defeat the slimes and make your way through the labyrinth, or will you slip and slide to doom? If you are enjoying this video, check out my Patreon, where you can get access to original monster stat blocks, awesome magic items, and full adventure PDFs every month. Do your massive battles turn into massive slogs? Minion mechanics. After months or years of adventuring, your players will have gone from struggling against goblins and orcs to facing massive dragons. A good way to show the players how strong they have gotten is to face them off against a swarm of creatures that they once struggled with. When you do so, use the minion rules. Minion versions of creatures deal the same amount of damage as normal, but they only have one hit point, meaning they will fall from a single attack. If the players use an AoE saving throw spell such as Fireball, creatures that succeed will save their lives, and everyone else dies. Swarm them in waves. While throwing everything you got at them might look more menacing, it will make your turns take forever and congest the battlefield to a standstill. My rule for combat as the DM is to finish my turn as quickly as the players, even if I am managing multiple monsters. To help with this, lessen the load by sending the monsters in waves, starting with a few and increasing in numbers and from different angles over the rounds. Simplify roles. When doing mass combat, it is best to limit the types of enemies to 1 or 2 variants. Have creatures of the same type take their turn at the same time and roll all of their attacks at once. After that, roll all of the damage dice at once, or to simplify it even further, by using the average damage. I personally am not a fan of using average damage, as it takes away tension from fights, but in this case, it will save you a ton of time. 3 tips for better combat narration. Between managing multiple monsters, keeping track of initiative, and keeping the pace smooth, it's easy for combat to devolve to you hit and you miss. Use dialogue. As you lunge forward with your sword, the pirate parries your blow with a smug grin on his face.
Is that all you got, matey? Looks like your fish food.
When players miss, adding a line of dialogue from the enemy can make your players more determined to win. It makes for a more satisfying victory when they succeed, and you can be sure your players will get a few one-liners in as well. How did it happen? Give a reason as to why an attack hit or missed. Describe the enemy seeing the attack in the corner of their eye and raising their shield just in time, or how the remnants of the wizard's fireball turned their arrow to ashes mid-air. If an attack hits, describe where it hit and how it affects them, perhaps pulling their attention to the player who just stabbed them. Encourage player narrative. Ask your players to describe where and how they attack. Consider making it easier for the players to hit or deal more damage if they get creative. And nothing is better than setting up the scene for the final blow and asking your players how they want to finish it.